You ever think you matter to people, only to find out you were just a placeholder? That's what happened to me. And trust me, when a 74-year-old woman like me decides she's done being walked over, well, people learn their lessons the hard way. Hello there. My name is Eleanor May Carter, and I'm 74 years old enough that my bones pop like bubble wrap whenever I get out of bed, but young enough that my mind is sharp and stubborn as hell. My voice may shake sometimes, but don't let that fool you. I've lived too long, seen too much, and swallowed more disrespect than most people can imagine, and that's exactly why I'm finally telling this story, the one I hid for months, even from my closest friend at church. The one that started with a simple, stupid sentence that changed everything: "We gave your room to someone else." I never thought my heart could actually drop. Not figuratively, I mean physically, like it slid down into my stomach and burned there like acid. And the worst part? It came from people who were supposed to love me, my own family. But let me start from the beginning, because nothing about this was simple. I had lived alone for 18 years since my husband, Walter, passed away. You never forget the morning you wake up and the other side of the bed is cold, like the world moved on without telling you. Every morning after that feels like a rehearsed act. Inhale, exhale, pretend, survived. My daughter, Kimberly, lives 2 hours away. She always said she'd check in more, but life swallowed her. Job promotions, a husband who never liked me, 2 kids who only texted if they needed birthday money. I didn't resent them. I just faded into the background, I guess. Still, I spoke to them every Sunday. I sent crocheted blankets for every holiday. I babysat when asked. I remembered birthdays, anniversaries, dance recitals, exams even when they forgot mine. Then one rainy Thursday in October, I fell. Not a dramatic movie fall. Just a quiet, humiliating one, the kind that knocks the wind out of you and leaves you staring at the ceiling, realizing how fragile your bones are. I'd slipped in the kitchen while carrying a bowl of soup, and when I hit the floor, the bowl shattered beside me. I remember thinking, so this is how it starts. This is how old age wins. I crawled to the phone. Called my daughter. She didn't pick up the first 2 times. On the third call she answered, breathless with annoyance, whispering, "Mom, I'm at work." "What's wrong?" I told her. And everything changed. Suddenly, the next morning, Kimberly showed up on my porch as if she'd remembered she had a mother. She rushed inside, didn't even take her coat off, and started scanning my house like a building inspector. "Mom, this isn't safe. You can't live alone like this." Her voice had that clipped, commanding tone she used to use on her toddlers. I tried to laugh. "It was just one fall, honey." I stood up afterward. No, this is serious," she said. "We've been talking, and we think you should stay with us for a while." That's when I knew her husband, Mark, was involved. He had a way of sounding present even when he wasn't in the room. Now, look, I'm not stupid. I knew I was getting older. I knew help might become necessary someday. But hearing my own daughter say I shouldn't live alone anymore, something inside me cracked. Even so, I agreed. Because that's what mothers do. We let people make us small, if it convinces them we're safe. I packed 2 suitcases. My photos. My medication. My cross necklace. My journal. My quiet dignity. Before leaving, I paused in my bedroom doorway, touching the frame gently. "I'll be back soon," I whispered. I believed it, but life has a funny way of turning whispers into lies. Their house was big, shiny wood floors, white walls, furniture that made you afraid to sit down. It didn't feel lived in. It felt curated. From the moment I walked in, I could sense the tension. Mark barely greeted me before returning to his laptop. The kids said hi without looking up from their phones. Kimberly hugged me, but even her hug felt rushed, like she was hugging a delivery. She walked me upstairs. "So, Mom, you remember your room, right?" Of course I did. That room was the only place in their house where I felt like a person instead of an inconvenience. I had stayed there through holidays, storms, and birthdays. I'd sewn curtains for the windows. Left a book on the nightstand. It had smelled like lavender and warmth, but when she opened the door, the room was different. Too different. The bedspread wasn't mine. The pictures I had framed were gone. The curtains I had sewn were replaced. My little crocheted cushion? Gone. It looked like a hotel room someone had redecorated badly. I stepped inside slowly. "It looks changed." "Oh, yeah," she said, waving her hand casually, "we updated it." Mark thought it was too old-fashioned. But we kept it as your room, of course. Of course. I smiled. But it wasn't real. Not even close. The next few weeks were strange. Kimberly hovered like a storm cloud. Mom, careful. Mom, don't lift that. Mom, let me do it. It should have been sweet. It wasn't. It felt performative and tight, like she was following instructions she didn't actually agree with. Mark was worse. His comments were snide and dripping with manufactured politeness. Eleanor, don't worry about helping with the dishes. We don't want anything slipping again. I tightened the shower rail, wouldn't want you pulling the whole wall down by accident. And then, the cherry on top, do you think the thermostat is too high? Old folks get confused about temperature. Old folks. If only he knew how loudly disrespect echoes in a quiet house. One night, about 3 weeks in, I overheard them talking downstairs. I wasn't eavesdropping, my hearing is bad, but my instincts are sharp. They were arguing, whispering like teenagers caught skipping curfew. She needs a full-time solution, Mark hissed. She's my mother, Kimberly snapped, and this is our home. We can't rearrange everything around her. My throat tightened. I stepped back, leaning against the wall until my chest stopped hurting. Full-time solution. Like I was a plumbing issue, I didn't confront them. I just pretended nothing happened. Because sometimes silence is the sharpest blade. But here's where everything truly broke. It was a Monday morning. Sunlight spilled into the room in that soft, forgiving way it does in winter, making everything feel like it might be okay. Kimberly knocked on the door. Mom? Can we talk for a second? Her voice was too gentle. The kind of gentle you use on someone fragile. I sat on the bed. Come in. She stepped in, hands clasped nervously. So, Mom, something came up. I didn't speak. I just watched her fiddle with her ring. She exhaled slowly. We need your room, for a while. I blinked. My room? It's just temporary. Mark's cousin is coming from out of state and your cousin? I repeated, feeling something cold climb up my spine. Well, his cousin, technically. But he needs a place to stay and Kimberly. I stood up, my voice trembling more from disbelief than age. Where am I supposed to go? She didn't look at me. Her eyes darted to the floor like she was ashamed of the words coming out. We set up a cot for you in the basement. Just for a little bit. A cot. Did I end the basement? My daughter, the child I held, the girl I raised alone, the woman whose tears I caught in my hands when her first boyfriend broke her heart, had decided I belonged in a basement so Mark's cousin could have a room. I felt my knees weaken. A burning heat crawled through my chest. But honey, this is my room. And then she said it. The sentence that fractured something inside me forever. Mom, we gave your room to someone else. Just like that. No apology, no hesitation, no understanding of the wound she was slicing open. I stared at her, and for the first time in my life, I didn't see my daughter. I saw a stranger wearing her face. I nodded, very slowly. Okay. She blinked. Really? Yes, I whispered. And then I sat down on the edge of the bed, pretending to adjust my slipper, because I refused to let her see the tears gathering in my eyes. She left the room with a relieved sigh. Relieved. That was the moment something snapped inside me. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't guilt her. I waited. That night, while they slept, I quietly packed my 2 suitcases. My photos. My blankets. My journal. My necklace. At the door, I looked back at the house I'd tried so hard to fit into, the house that only tolerated me. Then I quietly walked away. But here's where the revenge part begins, because you don't abandon a 74-year-old woman in a basement and expect her to disappear like dust. No, my dear, you expect her to survive, but you never expect her to watch. And I watched them from a distance for months, silently, carefully planning what came next, and I promise you, they had no idea what was coming. People like to assume the elderly disappear quietly, like dust brushed off a windowsill. But I didn't vanish. I relocated. I recalculated. And most importantly, I finally opened my eyes. I left my daughter's house at 2:17 a.m. Why that exact time? Because it was the moment the house felt most silent, that heavy, suffocating silence people only notice after fighting. A silence I had memorized from years of coexisting with a husband who drank too much and apologized too little. The moonlight hit the driveway like a cold flashlight. The air bit my cheeks, sharp as needles. I moved slowly, dragging my suitcases across the grass so the wheels wouldn't rattle against the cement. I wasn't afraid they'd wake up, no. I just didn't want to give them the satisfaction of hearing me leave. I walked down the street until my legs wobbled. My lungs burned. My fingers were numb. But my mind felt clearer than it had in decades. At dawn, I checked into a cheap roadside motel, the kind where the paint flakes in the corners of the walls and the carpet has patterns to hide stains no one wants to talk about. The woman at the front desk didn't ask questions. She barely looked at me. For once, I was grateful to be invisible. In that tiny motel room, I sat on the edge of the stiff bed and whispered to myself, "Don't cry, Eleanor. Crying is what they expect." And I didn't, not once. Not that day. Instead, I opened my small spiral notebook, the same one I'd used for grocery lists, and I wrote one sentence: "They took my room. So now I'll take something back." Revenge at 74 looks different than at 20. You don't break windows or scream. You plan. You wait. You watch people unravel under their own selfishness. You learn what hurts without laying a finger on anyone. The first day, I turned my phone off. The second, I turned it back on just to see the calls. Missed call. Kimberly, 7, missed call. Home, 3, text. Mom? Where are you? Text. This isn't funny. Text. Mom, answer your phone. Please. But the one that made my lip curl was from Mark. "You can't just leave like this. It's irresponsible. Irresponsible for leaving a basement, a cot, a room they gave away like a hand-me-down sweater." I didn't reply. My silence was louder than anything I could have said. By the third day, they called the police, a welfare check. I only know because a polite officer knocked on my motel door around lunchtime. I opened it, standing straight and steady. "Your family reported you missing." "I'm not missing," I said calmly. "I'm choosing to be elsewhere." He studied me, the packed bags, the unmade bed, the empty yogurt cup in the trash. He nodded gently. "Would you like me to tell them you're safe?" "No," I said. "Tell them I'm alive. Nothing more." His eyebrows lifted slightly, like he understood more than he let on. When he walked away, something unclenched inside me. Here's where things began shifting. I lived in that motel for 8 days. Long enough for my bones to ache from the stiff mattress, but short enough not to grow roots. I spent my days drinking weak coffee from paper cups and thinking. Really thinking. About my life. My choices. My failures. My daughter, was it all my fault? Had I raised her to believe I'd always be waiting in the corner, grateful for scraps of affection? Had I been too forgiving, too soft? The truth tasted bitter. On the 9th day, I moved into a small short-term rental, dusty but private. A widow owned it. She reminded me of an older version of myself. Her name was Dolores, and she had the kind of voice that made you feel like you'd known her in another lifetime. "You're welcome to stay as long as you need," she told me. "Women like us, we protect our own." Her kindness made something warm flicker in my chest. A small ember of comfort, the first I'd felt since the night they stole my room. Meanwhile, my absence didn't just unsettle my family, it frightened them. Did I know? Because on day 10, my grandson, sweet, clumsy, soft-spoken Evan, the only one who ever actually hugged me without being asked, called from a number I didn't recognize. "Grandma?" His voice was trembling. "Are you okay?" That boy, he always saw me more clearly than his mother ever did. I wanted to tell him everything, but I couldn't betray my own plan. "I'm safe, darling," I said. "But I won't be coming back right now." He swallowed audibly. "Mom's freaking out. She's crying. She thinks you left because she did something wrong." My throat tightened. Good, not because I wanted her to suffer, but because guilt is the only language she ever truly responded to. "Well," I said softly, "maybe she needs to think about why she believes that." He went quiet. I heard his breathing. "Then I miss you." I nearly broke then. My voice cracked around the edges like an old mirror. "I miss you too, sweetheart." After the call ended, I sat on the floor and finally cried. Not because I was weak, but because being loved, truly loved, hurts more than abandonment ever will. While they panicked, I learned things about myself I hadn't known. That I wasn't fragile, that I wasn't helpless, that I wasn't a burden. And I wasn't done living. That I spent my mornings walking around town, my cane tapping softly against the pavement. I'd sit on park benches and watch the world move without rushing me. People nodded at me, smiled at me, spoke to me like a person, something I hadn't felt in years. I bought a cheap second-hand laptop and learned how to use it. I started journaling every day, not about the pain, but about the freedom. I learned to cook for myself again. I learned to sleep without fear of someone sighing at me for bothering them, and slowly, a plan formed. Not a violent plan. Not a cruel one, but one sharp enough to slice through every layer of guilt, manipulation, and entitlement my daughter had built around herself. You see, I didn't want to hurt them. I wanted them to finally see me. 2 weeks after I left, I returned to my old house, not my daughter's, but my own home, the one she'd tried to convince me to give up. The house was still mine. Paid off. Quiet. Lonely, yes. But survivable. Dust covered the entryway table. The air smelled like disuse and memory. My framed photos stared back at me as if asking, "Where did you go?" I spent hours cleaning, humming softly, wiping away weeks of abandonment. The sun was setting when I found the crocheted cushion that had gone missing from my daughter's guest room. It was in a bag on the floor, folded neatly, thrown aside, discarded, just like me. That was the final confirmation I needed. I sat at my kitchen table, and I started writing letters, not angry letters, not vengeful letters. Honest letters. 1 for Kimberly. 1 for Mark. 1 for the grandchildren. 1 for myself. But the letter to my daughter, that one was different. It was longer, sharper, true. It began, "You gave my room to someone else. So I gave my presence to no one." I explained exactly how her words had broken something irreparable, how the basement cot felt like a coffin, how she'd seen me as fragile, but never as valuable, how I refused to be treated as an afterthought a moment longer. I left the letter on her porch at 6 a.m., visible, unavoidable. Then I walked away. The explosion came by noon. My phone rang 21 times. Texts came in like bullets. "Mom, how could you? Why would you leave without telling anyone? You're being dramatic. Just come home. Please. You didn't have to do this." And the one that told me everything, "Fine. If you want to be alone so badly, then stay alone. I won't keep chasing you." There it was, her real voice. The voice that hated responsibility, hated guilt, hated feeling wronged. I didn't reply because she wasn't talking to me. She was talking to the version of me she'd invented. The version who always forgave, always returned, always folded herself to fit their needs. But that woman? She was gone. Days passed. Then a week. By the 9th day, Kimberly showed up at my door, not knocking politely, no, she was pounding. "Mom. Mom, open the door." I opened it slowly. There she stood, makeup smudged, eyes red, hair messy. Not the polished daughter who'd told me to move into the basement. Not the confident woman who'd given my room to a stranger. Just a scared child. My scared child. "Mom," she whispered, voice trembling. "Please. Please let me in." I stepped aside. She walked in, looking around like she expected to see ghosts. Then she turned to me with tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry. I didn't realize, Her words crashed over each other like waves, and for the first time in a long time, I let her cry. But forgiveness, that would come later, not now, because chapter 2 isn't the chapter where wounds heal. It's the chapter where they finally recognize the wound. People assume that when a mother and daughter reconcile, it's soft and warm and tied together with a pretty bow, a hug, a tear, and suddenly years of hurt just dissolve. But real life isn't a Hallmark movie. Real life is messy. Real life stings. Real life forces you to look at someone you love and ask, "Who exactly are you, underneath everything?" When Kimberly walked into my house that morning, I felt something inside me tighten, not anger, not fear, but a kind of shaky anticipation. She stood in the entryway like a stranger, her hands trembling, her shoulders hunched the way mine used to be when I was her age, always apologizing just by existing. "Mom," she whispered, "can we sit?" I nodded because I'd already taken my seat hours ago, the choice to listen, but not to bend. We sat at my old oak kitchen table. That table had seen decades of arguments, apologies, burned dinners, birthday cakes, and late-night confessions. But that morning, it felt like a witness. A quiet judge. Waiting. Kim dabbed at her eyes with the sleeve of her jacket. "I read your letter," she said. "Every word. Twice." I stayed quiet and I didn't know you felt that way. That sentence, that tiny, fragile little sentence, cracked something in me. Not because it healed anything, but because it told me the truth. She never saw me, she never tried to. I leaned forward, my voice steady but not unkind. "I told you for months, Kimberly. I told you every time you dismissed me. You just didn't want to hear it." She inhaled sharply, shame flushing across her face. I know, she whispered. God, I know. I was overwhelmed. Mom. Work. The kids. The bills. Mark's job. I held up a hand. No excuses. I need honesty, not explanations. Her lips tightened, and she nodded slowly, the way a child nods when scolded. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The refrigerator hummed softly. A car drove by. Outside, a wind chime jingled faintly, the same one she'd given me 5 Mother's Days ago. Before everything started to unravel finally, she reached for my hand. Mom. I'm scared. I didn't think you'd leave like that. I thought you were stronger than that. I almost laughed, bitterly, sharply, like turning a shard of glass between my fingers. Stronger than what, honey? Stronger than being replaced. Her eyes watered. Mom, it wasn't like that. Kimberly, I said, leaning in, my voice a whisper with teeth. You gave my room to someone else. My space. My dignity. You shoved me into the basement like a stray dog you didn't know what to do with. She covered her face. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did. Silence, heavy, humid, thick with all the years we never talked about the real things. I watched her breathe, watched the way her shoulders shook as she tried to gather herself. I waited, because patience was a weapon now, a new one I'd finally learned to use. Then she said the words that cracked the room open. Mom. I was scared you'd become my responsibility. That I'd lose control of my life. That you'd take over everything. I just panicked. There it was, the truth, the selfishness wrapped in fear, the fear wrapped in obligation, the obligation wrapped in resentment. I nodded slowly. I appreciate your honesty. Truly. But you need to hear mine too. Her eyes lifted. I took a deep breath, a deep, steadying breath that tasted like the years I'd swallowed. You treated me like I was temporary. Like I could be moved, replaced, stored away. And you never once asked what I wanted. Because deep down, I don't think you believed my wants mattered anymore. She blinked rapidly. Mom. I'm so sorry. I let that apology hang in the air for several seconds, letting its weight settle. Then I said something even I wasn't expecting. I don't hate you, Kimberly. I never have. But I don't trust you right now. That's the part we have to fix if we can. She deflated, like a balloon losing air. Her voice came out small. How do I fix it, Mom? Tell me what to do. I didn't answer right away because the truth was, I didn't know if it could be fixed. Something fragile had snapped. Something old and brittle, but I also knew what I needed next. Not forgiveness. Not apologies. Respect her. So I said, I want space. I want boundaries. And I want you to understand that I am not an object in your home. I am a person. A woman. Your mother. And if I'm going to be in your life, it will be on equal ground, not under your feet. She nodded, crying quietly. We talked for another hour, mostly her crying and me listening. Hurt takes time to bleed out, but when she left, she hugged me tighter than she had in years, desperate, fragile, human. Mom, she whispered against my shoulder, please don't disappear again. I didn't promise anything. I simply said, I'll think about it. The days after our conversation were strange. Quiet. Like the stillness after a storm when everything looks the same but nothing feels the same. Kim texted every day, short messages at first. Good morning. How are you feeling? Let me know if you need anything. Then longer ones. I've been thinking a lot, Mom. About us. I didn't realize how selfish I'd been. I should have protected you, not made you feel unwanted. Sometimes I replied, sometimes I didn't. I wasn't being cruel, I was learning to put myself first. Something I hadn't done in over 70 years, and then something unexpected happened, something small, but powerful. One morning, my phone buzzed. A message from my grandson, Evan. Grandma, Mom's different lately. She listens more. She doesn't yell. She started cooking dinner with us. I think she's trying. My eyes stung. That boy was my softest spot. I sent him a heart emoji, the first emoji I had ever used intentionally. Later that afternoon, I made myself tea and sat in the sunroom, where the light hit everything in a warm golden wash. Birds chirped. The world felt softer. Was this what peace felt like? But peace never lasts long in my life. It never has. Not 20 minutes after settling into my chair, my phone rang. Not Kimberly. Not my grandchildren. Marked. My jaw clenched before I even answered. His voice came through sharp, frustrated, already defensive. Eleanor, we need to talk. I didn't respond, Letting the silence force him to adjust his tone. He cleared his throat. I think you've made your point. You've scared everyone half to death. It's time to come home. Home. He said it like he owned the word. Mark, I said slowly, I am home. He scoffed. That's ridiculous. Kimberly needs you. The kids need you. You can't just walk away. My eyes narrowed. Walk away from what exactly? You know, helping with the kids, cooking sometimes, being part of the household. You know, your role. My role. My role. Heat surged up my chest. Anger sharpened my voice like broken glass. My role is to live my life, Mark. Not to serve yours. I could practically hear him roll his eyes. You're being dramatic. She did everything for you. You should be grateful. Something in me snapped, not loudly, quietly, like a rope breaking in the dark. Tell you what, Mark, I said, voice calm but shaking with truth, when your mother gets old, I hope someone gives her a cot in the basement and tells her she should be grateful. Maybe then you'll understand. He tried to speak. I didn't let him, and from now on, I said, you will not speak to me unless you learn respect. Goodbye. I hung up before he could say another word. My hands shook for a full minute afterward, not from fear, but from release. Power feels unfamiliar at my age, like slipping into a coat you forgot you owned. I didn't know it yet, but that moment would become the turning point. The moment my revenge, gentle, strategic, quiet revenge, would take its fullest shape. 3 days later, the Real crack appeared. Kim came over again, but this time she wasn't crying. She looked nervous, like she was hiding. Something, Mom, she said, voice thin. I need to tell you something. Please don't get upset. I braced myself. She twisted her fingers, looked down, then finally whispered, that woman, the one we gave your room to, she wasn't just a guest. She wasn't a friend. She was, her voice broke, she was someone I owed money to. My stomach dropped. What kind of money? I asked. She swallowed. Bad money. Those 2 words hit harder than any insult she'd ever thrown at me. Suddenly everything made sense, her tension, her panic, the rushed decisions, the way she'd shoved me aside. But she wasn't done. She threatened to ruin us, Kim whispered. She said if we didn't let her stay, she'd go after the kids. She'd go after Mark's job. I didn't know what to do. I stared at her, really stared, and all I could think was, you trusted a stranger with your home before you trusted your own mother. The hurt was sharp, hot, clean. Mom, she whispered, I didn't want to drag you into it. I was scared. I'm still scared. I leaned back in my chair, breath heavy. This wasn't just a story about a daughter who mistreated her mother. This was a story about a woman drowning and pushing me under to keep herself afloat. A trembling, reluctant sympathy stirred inside me, but so did anger. You should have told me, I said. I could have helped. She shook her head violently. No, Mom. You don't understand. This woman, she's dangerous. I whispered, do you still owe her? Her silence answered for her, and something cold spread through my chest. A new kind of fear. A new kind of resolve. This wasn't just about respect anymore. This wasn't just about a room. This was deeper, darker. A family secret buried under shame and fear, and whether I wanted to or not, I was now part of it. I looked at Kimberly across that kitchen table, and she looked smaller than I had ever seen her. Broken. Frightened. Human. Mom, she whispered, I need your help. Her voice cracked. Please. I closed my eyes, and just like that, the story shifted. Because revenge doesn't always mean burning bridges. Sometimes it means walking across them with fire in your hand, not to destroy, but to illuminate everything hiding in the dark. And now, I had to decide, would I save her? Or would I let her feel what abandonment truly tastes like? By the time I returned for the final confrontation, the autumn sun was a sharp, cutting gold, slicing across the streets like it wanted to expose every corner, every secret. I parked my old sedan 2 blocks away from my daughter's house and just watched. Breathing in the crisp air, letting my eyes trace the windows, the driveway, the porch, everything they had once tried to make mine, everything they had tried to erase. It's strange, isn't it? How a person can feel invisible for decades and then, suddenly, the world becomes a stage for them. And when you step onto that stage after being ignored, belittled, shoved aside, the silence is loud. It's deafening. And it tells everyone, I'm here. And you cannot move me. Kimberly opened the door before I even knocked. I could see her hesitation in her hands, the slight tremor as she wrung them together. Mark hovered in the background, the way men do when they've been caught between fear and shame. The kids were nowhere in sight. Wisely, Mom, Kimberly's voice cracked. I didn't, I raised a hand. Kimberly. Don't. I'm not here for apologies. She flinched but nodded. That alone told me she understood there were consequences now. Not the fake consequences she tried to teach me about before, like basement cots and faux concern. Real consequences inside. The house was too perfect. White walls, polished floors, everything designed to show control, to demonstrate order. It made my stomach churn. I had once tried to fit into this order. Once. And it had hurt me. A lot, but that hurt had become fuel. I walked inside like I owned it. Which, in reality, I did. I just had to make them remember. Mark, I said softly, yet with an edge. He looked up. Surprise, fear, and then guilt flashed across his face, one after another. Eleanor, he started. I ignored him. My eyes found Kimberly. Her face was pale, drawn. I knew she was silently begging me to forgive her, but I wasn't there yet. I was only there to take back what was mine, the room. My room. The room they had given to that woman, a stranger, a danger, someone who had threatened them and made them make choices that hurt me the most. I went upstairs without a word. The door to the room, now mine again, was closed. I could hear faint whispers inside. A metallic sound. The kind of sound that makes the stomach tighten and your hands clench. I opened it slowly, and there she was. The woman. Not my daughter, not a relative, not a friend, a predator in plain clothes. She looked startled, but only for a fraction of a second. That fraction was enough. Eleanor Carter, she said. Her voice was soft, oily, like it wanted to charm. Yes, I said. My voice was cold, calm. And you are trespassing. She laughed, low, venomous, trying to cover the sudden tension. I'm just staying here. Your daughter said she lied, I said, stepping closer. The walls seemed to shrink around us. My heart beat fast, not with fear, but with clarity. I had waited for this moment. Her eyes darted, searching for a weakness. She thought my age meant weakness. She thought 74 meant easy to intimidate. She was wrong. You don't belong here, I said again. And this time, I let my voice carry every ounce of anger, every betrayal, every long-suppressed indignation. You never did. You threatened my family, my space, my dignity. You took what wasn't yours. And now, you're going to leave. She smirked. Or what? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I walked to the small dresser, the one I had restored with my hands. Every scratch, every knob, every corner had my memory in it. I opened the top drawer. Inside were personal items, letters, trinkets, things that had meaning. Things she would never understand. This is my life, I said, turning to face her fully. My memories. My room. My choices. And you do not get to touch them. You do not get to control anyone in this house. You are gone. Her smirk faltered. For the first time, I saw fear creep into her eyes. Real, visceral fear. And I realized something important. Fear is the language the reckless understand. Not yelling, not tears, fear. I moved closer. Leave. Now. Or I call the police. Or better yet, I paused, savoring it, I expose everything you've done. Every threat. Every manipulation. Every lie you told my family to cover your tracks. She paled, looking between the dresser and me, weighing the truth against her options. Her charm was gone. Gone like smoke in the wind. You can't do that, she whispered. I smiled faintly. Oh, I can. And I will. Unless you walk out that door right now. She did not wait for a second warning. She bolted, slammed the door behind her, the sound echoing like a gavel. I let it resonate in the room, let it mark victory without a single hand laid on her. I closed the door slowly. My chest was tight. My legs trembled, but not from weakness, from adrenaline. From power. From reclaiming what had always been mine. Then I turned to the window and looked outside. Mark and Kimberly were frozen in the driveway. They had watched the whole thing unfold either through windows or instinct. They could no longer pretend ignorance. I walked down the stairs and stopped in the living room. Kimberly's eyes were wide, and her hands clutched each other like she was holding on to herself. Mom, she whispered. I took a deep breath. You taught me that even family can betray. You taught me patience. You taught me strength. And I thank you, in the strangest way, for letting me discover all of it. But I am here now. On my terms. Not yours. Not anyone else's. Tears streaked down her face. Mark looked contrite, but not humiliated. Not yet. That would come later. I walked past them to the room, my room. I ran my hand over the bedspread, touched the photos, the curtains, the walls. Everything smelled like home, like me. I had waited too long for this, and nothing could take it away again. Kimberly followed slowly. Mom. I'm sorry. Truly. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I smiled softly. It was a smile of release, of triumph, of relief. You can stay, I said finally. But know this, I am not the same woman who let herself be moved around. I am not fragile. I am not silent. And I will not disappear again. She nodded, fully understanding now. Finally understanding. Mark opened his mouth, but I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. My silence was enough. He learned what words could not convey. The air was thick with lessons, all of them mine. That night, I slept in my own bed. Peaceful, full, satisfied. The house hummed around me. The ghosts of betrayal were there, yes, but so were the echoes of justice and respect, and I knew, deep in my bones, that sometimes the fiercest revenge isn't anger. It isn't yelling. It isn't destruction. It's reclamation. It's standing tall in the space that is yours, demanding to be seen, demanding to be honored, and refusing to let anyone take it away again. The room was mine, the family had learned, and Eleanor May Carter, at 74, wise, stubborn, unbroken, had finally won.